Good afternoon, everyone listening in from Australia, and good morning from everybody in Singapore. So my name is John. As Charmaine said, I am the sales manager for Privacec. So I've really recently come on board to this organization and put my hand up to moderate today, just off the sheer, caliber of people we have speaking. So I'm very happy to introduce our first speaker for the day. So I've got a bit of a bio on her I want to go through because I think it's really impressive. So our first speaker for this stream is the current Chief InfoSec Officer at Healthscope. She's in charge of defining and implementing the organization's security and data strategy policy as a whole. She's also the director of the Melbourne Chapter of ISACA, ensuring that over 100,000 or so members are using industry best practices and knowledge to the best of their ability. So, that's a gigantic task in and of itself. She has over 20 years experience in health, financial and professional services industries, and very much a leader in delivering technology and cybersecurity transformation projects. So it's a real privilege for us to speak to her this morning. So her name is Mitra, and she will be focusing on a risk-based approach to setting security strategy. So Mitra, are you online?
Yes, I am. Thanks, John.
How are you?
I'm very good. Thank you for that introduction. So thank you everyone for joining this session. I'll be running you through taking a risk-based approach to setting the security strategy. Okay, so in order to obtain approval for cybersecurity strategy, roadmap and investment, CISOs should consider the following. Understanding the enterprise goals and objectives. It's really important to learn the language of your enterprise risk management framework, understand the wider business and be sympathetic to the needs of the business. Aligning the cybersecurity objectives to the business objectives, making sure the security initiatives to deliver the business, aligning the security initiatives to business deliverables, demonstrating the business value of cybersecurity. And thirdly, governance and reporting. It's really important to provide that visibility to the board and the key investors in terms of the consistent and holistic metrics and dashboard reporting you need to provide, really simplifying it into business language to enable the board members to understand and monitor cyber risk, and showing them the trend analysis and what's happening in the industry and providing benchmarking so they can really understand the focus areas for security. So how does a CISO do that? I will be taking you through some practical examples on how to do the following. So I will take you through some practical examples of how to follow each of these steps that I have articulated here. You need to evaluate your current states and gaps and benchmark against the industry. You need to translate that into risks and threats so the business understands what the exposures are and really the cost of those exposures to the business. You need to define the cybersecurity strategy and roadmap based on those exposures that you've articulated to the business. And then, as I mentioned before, governance and reporting is a key one. You really need to provide clear metrics and dashboard reporting so that the board and yourself and your team can track progress and provide status updates, provide key performance indicators, and show the trend analysis to really show the improvement you're making month on month, and showing that through those initiatives that the board and the business, the organization have invested in, you're really moving the dial in the right direction. You're really improving the maturity and capability of the organization. And finally, leading the business from cyber defense to cyber resilience. So let me take you through some practical examples that I've applied in my role historically, and hopefully you can use some of these learnings from me. So this is an example of the NIST cybersecurity maturity assessment. I'm sure any of you who are in the security or IT area are very familiar with the NIST framework, the key domains around identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. And most recently, I think it was around last year, NIST came out with a cybersecurity maturity assessment. It's a very detailed Excel spreadsheet. So there's a lot more information behind each of these subdomains and key controls that you should be demonstrating against to show that you're actually mature in that space. So you really need to undertake that current state evaluation and identify your gaps. This is just an example of some of the results that you could potentially get once you go through this process. And again, as I said, there's detail underneath this. So once you've actually evaluated each of those subdomains, you can then pull together a summary view against each of those 5 domains where you think you might be at. Are you sitting at a non-existent? You just don't have any of those processes, technologies, controls, tools defined in your environment? Are you sitting at an initial state, a repeatable state, a defined state, a managed state, or optimized state? Once you've done that current state assessment, you then need to understand the target future state. So what is your organization's appetite? What is the aspirational target, and what do they want to invest in? So depending on the industry, as well as regulatory requirements and compliance requirements, as well as internal audit, external audit type reviews that you're getting, the organization as a whole might only have appetite for being at a defined state or at a managed state. And it's also really important to understand the industry average, to really understand what is the maturity level against your peers, and where are the competitors at, what are they doing in this space. You can really seek really rich information from your trusted strategic partners and vendors. They often have insights into where other organizations' priorities and key activities are, and you can really start to benchmark yourself against the competitors and peers and set that context for the board. Why do you recommend that we move to a maturity 3 or 4? What are the others in the marketplace doing? And why do we then need to have that level of investment and need to uplift some of these capabilities against each of these domains? So once you've defined that, the way to really provide that clarity to the board is, and this is something that's really resonated with my board members in the past, is against going back to that consistency in reporting against each of those 5 domain areas. And from the detailed current state assessment that you've done, pull together an overview you can share with the board. So where are the key areas of investment to uplift the maturity and capability? So against each of these, show the enterprise current state, the industry average, the enterprise target state. And then underneath that, you can then articulate the key areas of deficiency and where those, therefore translating that into risks. What are the exposures? If we don't manage our assets properly, if we don't do risk management or governance under identify domain, what is the so what? What is the risk and exposure? If we don't manage our access, our awareness and training, data security, protection processes, and I can, read out everything, but the point here is, what are the key deficiencies, and translating that into the so what, so the business can really understand, will these result in ineffective business processes? Will they result in DDoS attacks for the business? Will it result in ransomware attacks? What's happening in the industry? Really highlighting and bringing that to life for the board so that they can really understand where the key exposures are and what are they signing up to, what do they need to do. So to do that then, what I have done in the past is I've looked at what is the risk management framework, and every organization has this, from small through to large organizations have got some level of articulation of how to demonstrate their risks and how to manage their risks within their environments. So looking at what we've got as an example is a 5x5. We have this in the banks as well. We've got this in Healthscope, looking against impact and consequence versus the likelihood of that exposure, really mapping that out and really articulating those details for the board. Is ransomware high in your environment? Have you seen those attacks materialize in other organizations within your industry? Really bringing that to light for the board so that they can understand this is a real risk. And then how are we actually managing that risk? So back to those NIST domain and subdomains, what are the key activities and initiatives that we need to do? Either we're doing it well today, so we're at that defined and more mature state, or we actually need to invest in that and prioritize that. So really bringing that into light in this table format or any other format to really articulate against those risks. How well are you managing that risk within your environment? Where are the key deficiencies? Where is the investment that's required? And therefore, by investing in those key initiatives that you may not currently have in your environment, you're both raising the maturity and capability of the organization in the cybersecurity domain, but also you're reaching that target state of low or medium or whatever the appetite of the organization is against that particular risk. They might be low because ransomware is a key one for a lot of organizations. Obviously, nobody wants to be taken at ransom, but in the case of health, it's absolutely critical for us to get this right, to make sure we've got the right controls in place to ensure business operations, ongoing business operations. And so then once you've articulated those risks and exposures and really put those key initiatives and areas of investment that you require to reduce those risks and deficiencies in your environment, the next thing to do is then plot those all against as part of your security strategy and roadmap. You really need to prioritize and cost the key initiatives that will reduce the risk to within appetite, increase the cybersecurity maturity and capability to reach that agreed target state that you've defined previously, and enable key business initiatives to be delivered with security and data protection considerations. So some of those key things might be around governance and reporting uplift, audit risk and compliance, information asset management, where you really need to understand what your crown jewels are and how you need to protect those crown jewels. Are your controls effective against those crown jewels that you've got in your environment? Threat and vulnerability management, how well are you doing that? And what key initiatives do you need to invest in to uplift that area? How well are you doing incident management? Oftentimes, as CISOs, we always put up our hands and say, not on my watch, I don't want to be exposed. But it's just unfortunately a reality that at some point you may be exposed. So how are you going to manage that incident, and how are you going to minimize the impact to the business? So really understanding your incident management processes and how well prepared you are is really important. Other things for consideration might be obviously the cybersecurity threat detection and protection, monitoring and reporting. Identity and access management is a key one. As we've seen in the industry, there's a lot of credential compromise, and those cyber hackers and cyber criminals, a high percentage of those vulnerabilities that actually materialize in our environments is because of credential compromise. So how well are you managing your identity and access? Data protection is another one. Data is of high value on the dark web. So what type of data do you have in your environment? How well are you protecting that from a security perspective, and then from a privacy perspective as well? Obviously, in health is a critical component for us to protect the privacy of our patients. So how well are we doing that? What else do we need to invest in? What else do we need to prioritize? And one of the other areas of consideration might be training and awareness. How well are your staff informed? Because as we know, unfortunately, people are the weakest link. So how well do they understand the role and responsibility that they have in ensuring that those cybersecurity risks don't materialize in our environment? Really getting that focus from the business and from the staff on that. And so once you've established that, what's really important to do then is metrics and dashboard reporting. You really need to provide consistent metrics and dashboard reporting to the board. And again, it's so important to keep it consistent. So again, back to the NIST framework against those domains, what are the key things that you're measuring? Really showing traction through regular metrics and dashboard reporting will provide that level of comfort and trust from your board that you've got this at hand. You're measuring the improvements, the environment, and you're showing trending. So you're showing over time how much you're improving from perhaps areas that you were deficient and you might have been red in through to green, and reducing the risk for the organization. You really need to make it simple business language, provide some of those insights and recommendations, show the trending to the board so that they can get that level of comfort that you've got this at hand. And so then finally, once you've done the metrics, and that needs to be ongoing and regular updates to the board and to your risk and audit committee and elsewhere. And so what really tends to start to happen is that because you're speaking that simple business language to your business, to your investors, to your board, they start to see the value and the investment and the tracking against that investment, and really through your dashboards, all of that investment that they've made, what has that resulted in? How much risk has been reduced in the organization? How well are you protecting your crown jewel assets, your intellectual property, your sensitive data? You're demonstrating controls effectiveness, you're demonstrating incident management and recovery to enable ongoing business operations. From an operational cost reduction perspective, you have got automated workflows, you've got time to detect intrusions is reduced, time to remediate is reduced. You're certainly adding that value to the organization. You're reducing your resourcing costs because now you might have automated some of your processes and controls that you're providing back to the organization, and really always demonstrating that business value of cybersecurity. What are the benefits? How do you optimize on those benefits? Aligning the cybersecurity initiatives to the business objectives and plans, demonstrating the value that you're providing to the business, providing that cybersecurity awareness across the organization, and ensuring that those key initiatives that the business is bringing into the organization are secure by design, have got privacy considerations, and they are going to be successful from that perspective, not just from an uplift perspective, improving the maturity of your organization, but really protecting your organization from a potential reputational damage, from financial loss and other risks that might be prevalent in your environment. So I know I've spoken really fast. I only had 15 to 20 minutes to do this with you. I hope it has been useful. Charmaine, or others, I don't know if we have, John, if we have enough time for any questions that I can answer. But thank you for your time, everybody.
Thank you very much. I'm being told we have 2 questions, and we've got time to answer because of the technical glitch in the beginning. Can you guess what the first one is? It's probably the most popular question that comes up in these events. They want your slides.
Well, I'm glad they found it useful.
Oh, absolutely. Are you going to make it available to everybody?
Absolutely. Happy to share. I think the more we invest in each other and help each other out, the better we will be across the industry, right? So absolutely happy to share my slides. Happy to answer any questions offline. I'm on LinkedIn. You can reach out. Let me know, if you need any help in this space, happy to help.
Well, that's perfect, because we're actually getting a few of them coming in, so I don't think we're going to get time to address all of them, but if you're available, we'll make sure we put the details across to all the attendees. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
John, thank you for having me.
Not a problem.